Living room of the apartment we'd shared for 2 years. The TV was off. The lights were on too bright, the way they always seemed to be when tensions were already high. He was pacing. I was standing still. The argument was about his ex-girlfriend's new multi-level marketing scheme, some wellness supplement he insisted I should be more supportive of. I hadn't sounded enthusiastic enough, apparently. I hadn't clapped hard enough for someone else's fantasy. That's when he picked up the soda. It happened fast, no warning, no buildup. Cold liquid hit my face, splashing against my cheek, my hair, my collarbone. The drink ran down my neck and soaked into my shirt, sticky and sweet and humiliating. Then he laughed. Not awkwardly, not nervously. He laughed like he'd just pulled off a clever trick, like I was entertainment. That sound, that full, mocking laugh, was worse than the soda dripping down my temples. It wasn't anger, it was contempt. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I didn't throw anything back. I just stood there. I remember noticing how dark the splash looked against the light gray wall behind me, how the droplets slid slowly downward, leaving uneven trails. I remember thinking, this is what it looks like when someone crosses a line they think doesn't exist. His name doesn't matter anymore, but back then, he was my boyfriend, the man I lived with, the man who told people I was too sensitive whenever I tried to explain why moments like this hurt. I turned away from him without a word and walked to the bathroom. My reflection looked stunned, eyes wide, lips pressed together, hair plastered to my face. I grabbed a towel and dried myself slowly, deliberately. From the other room, I could still hear him chuckling, probably texting his friends, probably rewriting the story before I even opened my mouth. That's when something inside me went quiet. I pulled out my phone and took a photo of the soda splashed across the wall. The timestamp read 9:14 p.m. Then I took another picture of the puddle soaking into the hardwood floor. Not out of spite, out of clarity. Our landlord, Mr. Henderson, was old school, retired military, owned 3 properties on our street, and lived in one of them himself. He believed in order, clean lines, rules that meant something. I remembered the lease. I dried my hands, walked into the bedroom, opened my laptop, and pulled up the PDF saved in my email. Section 12B, Tenant Conduct. The words were unmistakable. Any act of aggression, violent behavior, intimidation, or intentional property damage is grounds for immediate termination of the lease for the offending party. I didn't hesitate. I wrote the email like a professional report, not an emotional plea. Subject, Incident Report, Apartment 3B. Dear Mr. Henderson, I am writing to report an incident that occurred tonight at 9:14 p.m. During a verbal disagreement, my co-tenant threw a drink at me inside the apartment, resulting in liquid damage to the wall and floor. I have attached time-stamped photographs for your reference. This is not the first time his anger has escalated into physical action, but it is the first time I've felt the need to formally document it. I am concerned about this pattern of behavior. Per Section 12B of our lease agreement, I am requesting your guidance on how to proceed. Thank you, Avery Perez. I attached the photos and hit send. Then I packed a small bag. I wasn't sleeping there that night. As I closed the door behind me, I didn't feel victorious. I felt strangely calm, like I'd finally stopped trying to explain myself to someone who had already decided I didn't deserve respect. That was the last night I ever stayed in that apartment as his girlfriend. And I didn't know it yet, but it was the first night of the rest of my life. I slept on my friend Marcus Nguyen's couch that night, fully dressed, my phone face down on the coffee table like it was something dangerous. Marcus didn't push. He just handed me a bottle of water, pointed to a spare blanket, and said, "If you need anything, I'm right here." That kind of quiet kindness hits different when you've been living in noise for too long. At some point after midnight, I checked my phone. 12 texts. They came in waves, like his moods always did. 1:03 a.m. Are you seriously doing the silent treatment thing? Grow up. 1:11 a.m. It was just a drink, Avery. You're acting insane. 1:29 a.m. Hello? 1:47 a.m. Are you okay? I'm worried about you. I stared at that last one the longest, because it was so familiar. That slick pivot from cruelty to concern. A trick he'd perfected over time, like he'd studied how to scramble my instincts, hurt me, then offer comfort, then punish me for needing it. I didn't reply. I didn't block him either. Not yet. Blocking feels emotional, reactive, and I wasn't reacting anymore. I was documenting. The next morning, while Marcus brewed coffee in the kitchen, my phone buzzed again. An email. Mr. Henderson, 7:30 a.m. It was short, clean, military style. Ms. Perez, thank you for bringing this to my attention. I will handle it. Please expect a call from me later today. No emojis, no questions, no hope you're doing well. Just I will handle it. I read it twice, then closed my laptop like I was sealing something official. Because I was. I went to work like a ghost in my own life, smiled when I needed to, answered emails, sat through a meeting I barely remember. My face was dry now, but I could still feel the cold sting of soda on my skin, like it had soaked into me. Every hour my phone buzzed. More texts. Some angry, some mocking, some pretending to be sweet. By lunchtime, he'd moved on to voice messages. I didn't listen. I just watched the little audio bars pile up like proof. Around 4 p.m., my phone rang. Mr. Henderson. I stepped outside the office building, into a strip of sharp winter sunlight, and answered. Ms. Perez, he said, voice flat as a closed door. It's done. My stomach tightened. I spoke with your co-tenant, he continued. I delivered him a 30-day eviction notice personally. Reason cited, violent behavior and violation of tenant conduct policy 12B. I blinked hard, not because I was surprised, because hearing it out loud made it real. He is solely responsible for vacating, Mr. Henderson said. Your lease will be amended to reflect you as the sole tenant once he's out. I don't tolerate that nonsense in my buildings. Let me know if there are any further issues. I swallowed. Thank you, he grunted, the sound of someone who didn't want gratitude, just compliance. Then the line went dead. I stood there for a second, phone still at my ear, feeling the strange emptiness that comes when you finally get what you asked for. I didn't feel happy. I felt clear. An hour later, my phone exploded. He called so loudly I could hear him through the speaker before I even answered. You got me evicted, he screamed, like eviction was something I'd done to him physically. You went to the landlord over a spilled drink? Are you out of your mind? I held the phone away from my ear, my jaw locked. When he paused to inhale, I said calmly, It wasn't a spilled drink. Silence. Then with venom, Oh my God, here we go. You threw it at me, I continued, my voice steady, almost clinical. And you laughed. That's not, he started. I'm done, I said. Then I hung up. 7 more calls came immediately after, like he believed persistence could rewrite reality. I didn't answer. Then my phone buzzed with a new message, this time from someone else. His sister. Her name was Brielle. Brielle had always been the reasonable one, the kind of person who spoke softly but carried exhaustion in her bones, the kind of woman who had probably been smoothing over his disasters her whole life. Her text read, What is going on? He's hysterical. He says you got him kicked out. I stared at the screen. My fingers hovered for a second before I typed the truth, plain and unadorned. He threw a drink in my face and laughed about it. Mr. Henderson has a strict policy about violent behavior. That's why the notice happened. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then nothing. 5 minutes later, another message. He told me you're being controlling, that you've been trying to punish him, that you set him up. I felt a sharp sting behind my eyes, not from sadness, but from the pure audacity of it. I typed, I have time-stamped photos. I have the email from your landlord confirming the reason. I'm not asking you to choose sides, Brielle. I'm just telling you what happened. A long pause. Then her reply. I believe you. Just 2 words. But it felt like someone cracked a window in a room I'd been suffocating in for years. I'm sorry, Avery, she added. He has a habit of making his own reality. That line landed heavy, because I realized he didn't just lie to people. He lied to himself first. And if you lived with him long enough, he expected you to live inside that lie with him. That night, I went back to the apartment for the first time. Not to argue, not to cry. To observe. The place looked the same, but it felt different. Like a stage after the show ends, when you can see the props for what they are. He was there, of course. He was sitting on the couch like a king who'd been informed his castle was being taken. When I walked in, he stood up fast. You really did it, he hissed, eyes wild. You really went behind my back. I set my keys on the counter slowly, forcing my hands not to shake. I documented what happened, I said. That's all. He took a step closer. You know what this is, right? This is you trying to control me. You always... No, I cut in quietly. That made him freeze, because I almost never interrupted him. I'm not controlling you, I said. I'm removing myself from this. His face twisted, like the only language he knew was dominance, and I just refused to speak it. He looked at me for a long, simmering second. Then he smiled. And that smile chilled me more than any yelling ever had. You think you're so smart, he said softly. You think you're the victim. I held his gaze. I know what I am. He scoffed. Fine. Enjoy your little victory. But don't act shocked when people find out what you're really like. There it was. The threat. Not physical. Social. Reputation. Isolation. That was always his favorite weapon. I didn't respond. I walked past him into the bedroom, closed the door, and locked it. From the other side, I heard him mutter something, probably about his ex-girlfriend, Jenna, the one he still kept in his orbit like a loaded gun, the one he'd once told me understood him when I didn't. A warning I hadn't taken seriously back then. Now I did. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to him slam cabinets in the kitchen like a tantrum disguised as casual movement. And for the first time, I didn't feel fear. I felt patience. Because the eviction notice wasn't the end. It was a countdown. And I knew exactly how many days were left until he was gone. The next 30 days felt longer than the 2 years we'd spent together. Not because of drama, because of tension. He didn't scream anymore. That phase passed quickly, replaced by something colder and more deliberate. Passive aggression became his new language. Doors slammed just hard enough to make a point. Music blasted at strange hours, always when he knew I had an early meeting. His things began to spread like a territorial marker. Shoes in the hallway, half-finished drinks on the counter, gym bags dropped exactly where I'd trip over them. I didn't react. I documented. A photo here, a time-stamped note there. Nothing dramatic, just facts. Most nights, I didn't even sleep in the apartment. Marcus let me crash on his couch, no questions asked. One night, while we were eating takeout straight from the containers, he finally said what I think he'd been holding back. Avery, he said carefully, that wasn't normal. What he did, none of it. I nodded, but the words still hit like a confirmation I'd been waiting years to hear. I know, I said. Then, after a pause, but I didn't always. The final day of the month arrived quietly. No confrontation, no goodbye. He moved his things out while I was at work. I came home that evening to an apartment that felt hollow. Not empty. Selective. The couch was gone. So was the bookshelf I'd bought with my first bonus 3 years ago. The ceramic lamp my aunt had given me. Missing. My good kitchen knives, the ones I actually cared about, gone from the block like they'd never existed. He didn't take random things. He took mine. And then I saw the wall. A long, deep scratch carved into the living room drywall where the couch used to sit. Not accidental. Too straight. Too intentional. Like a final signature. On the kitchen counter, stacked neatly, as if to mock my love for order, was a pile of unopened envelopes. Utility bills, electricity, gas, internet, all past due, all addressed to him. I stood there for a long moment, keys still in my hand, letting it settle. This wasn't a tantrum. This was punishment. I took pictures of everything. The scratch, the empty spaces, the bills. I sat at the kitchen table and opened each envelope, calculating carefully. His half of the utilities came to 287 form. A few days later, Mr. Henderson emailed me the repair estimate for the wall, $200, to be deducted from our security deposit. Since we'd split that deposit evenly, his responsibility was $100. I added it all up. $387. I sent him a text, polite, direct, unembellished. A breakdown of your share of the final utility bills and the wall repair is below. Total owed, $387.54. Please send payment by the end of the week. His reply came instantly. Lol, you really think I'm giving you a dime after you got me kicked out? Go fuck yourself. There it was. No denial. No argument. Just refusal. I didn't reply. Instead, I paid every bill in full, protecting my credit, my future, my peace. I paid Mr. Henderson directly for the wall repair so the full security deposit would be returned to me. Receipts matter. I saved everything as PDFs. The next day, I sent him a formal payment request through my banking app with the memo. Final utilities and damages reimbursement. Apt 3B. He declined it within minutes. I waited a week. Then I mailed him a certified letter. It felt old-fashioned, almost quaint, but paper trails don't disappear when emotions flare. The letter listed the amount owed, included copies of receipts, and gave him 10 business days to pay before I pursued other legal options. I received delivery confirmation. He still didn't respond. So I filed for small claims court. The filing fee was $50. I uploaded everything. The lease clause, the photos, the bills, the receipts, the payment request, the certified mail confirmation. No insults. No commentary. Just facts. A week later, he was served. That's when the phone rang. It was his sister again. And this time she sounded tired in a way that made my chest ache. He just called me screaming, she said. He says you're suing him out of spite, over less than $400. I kept my voice calm. It's not about the money. I figured, she sighed. Then what is it about? Accountability, I said. He agreed to pay his share. He caused damage. He thinks he can walk away from responsibility if he yells loud enough. I'm not letting that happen. I explained everything. The texts, the requests, the letter. She was quiet for a long moment. He told our parents you're harassing him, she finally said, that you're obsessed with ruining his life. I felt something twist in my chest. Not pain, exactly. Disappointment. I have proof of all of it, I said gently, including his refusal to pay. Another pause. Then, I believe you. Again. That window opening wider. We hung up on good terms. And strangely, that conversation felt like a bigger win than the money ever could, because someone else finally saw the pattern. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Not ever again. A few days after the court notice was served, his story went public. Not with names, not with details, with implication. Vague posts started appearing on social media, long paragraphs about escaping a toxic relationship, about being controlled and financially abused, about starting over from nothing after being thrown out with no warning. No names, but everyone knew. The comments flooded in. You're so strong. His loss. Proud of you for leaving. I stared at my phone, nausea curling in my stomach, not because people believed him, but because I recognized the pattern. He wasn't telling the truth. He was casting himself. Victim survivor, hero of his own rewrite. Marcus saw one of the posts and called me immediately. You're just going to let him do this? He demanded. Post your side, post the receipts, destroy him. I shook my head even though he couldn't see me. That's what he wants, I said. Chaos. Noise. If I fight him publicly, I become part of his story. So what are you going to do? I'm going to let the truth move quietly, I said. I didn't want to convince strangers. I wanted to protect the people who actually mattered. We still had a handful of mutual friends, people I'd laughed with, trusted, cooked dinner for. I created a small group chat with 4 of them, 2 couples we used to spend weekends with. I kept the message simple. Hey guys, I know you've probably seen some things online. I'm not going to air dirty laundry publicly, but since I value our friendships, I wanted you to have the facts directly from me. Then I attached 4 things. The photo of the soda splashed across the wall, the email from Mr. Henderson confirming the eviction for violent behavior, the screenshot of his text telling me to go fuck yourself when I asked for the bill money, and one of his public posts claiming he was thrown out for no reason. I ended with, he threw a drink at me, refused to pay shared bills, and was evicted by our landlord based on a lease clause he signed. I'm now pursuing reimbursement through small claims court. Those are the facts. The responses came fast. Oh my God, one friend replied. We had no idea. He said you just overreacted to a small argument. Another added, that's really messed up. Thanks for telling us the truth. I didn't ask them to confront him. I didn't ask them to take sides. I just gave them evidence. And evidence has a way of doing the talking for you. The fallout was quiet, but swift. One of the friends later told me she'd messaged him privately, asking why his story didn't match the proof I'd shared. Apparently, he exploded. Accused her of betrayal, of choosing me over him. That friendship ended on the spot. The social circle he'd tried to weaponize against me started collapsing, not because of gossip, but because of documentation. The most unexpected call came a week before the court date. His sister again. This time she was angry. Not at me. He tried to borrow money from our parents, she said, told them you were suing him out of spite, that you were harassing him. I closed my eyes. And? I told them everything, she said. The drink, the bills, the wall. I showed them the texts. I told them you gave him every chance. My chest tightened. Our dad was furious, she continued. He called him and told him to grow up, said he wouldn't give him a cent. I could hear the strain in her voice. He screamed at me, she added quietly, called me a traitor, said I was dead to him. I didn't know what to say. I'm sorry, I finally said. She let out a breath. Honestly, it's a relief. I'm tired of covering for him. I hope you win. On the morning of court, I dressed carefully, not to impress, but to feel grounded. Button-down blouse, black slacks, flat shoes. I arrived early, holding a thin folder with every document printed and organized. He was already there, dressed in all black, slouched dramatically on the bench outside the courtroom, texting furiously. He looked up when he saw me, eyes sharp with something between rage and disbelief. We didn't speak. Inside the courtroom, the judge was an older woman with steel gray hair and eyes that suggested she'd heard every lie twice already. She asked me to state my case. I stood, calm, clear, brief. I presented the lease, the photos, the bills, the receipts, the payment requests, the certified letter. 2 minutes. No insults, no emotions. When she turned to him, he launched into tears and accusations, called me manipulative, claimed emotional abuse, said I'd kicked him out unexpectedly, insisted the bills were fake, the wall scratch pre-existing. The judge listened without expression. Then she asked one question. You claim the damage was already there. Did you note it on the move-in inspection form? He stammered, We didn't do one. She flipped a page. And this is your signature on the lease agreeing to pay for damages upon move-out? Yes, he muttered. She pointed to the utility bill. This account is in your name. Do you have proof you paid your share? He didn't. Silence filled the room. This is a straightforward case, the judge said finally. The plaintiff has provided clear documentation. The defendant's testimony is emotional, but unsupported by evidence. She banged the gavel. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $437.54, including filing fees. He froze. I gathered my papers, said, Thank you, Your Honor, and walked out without looking back. I didn't feel victorious. I felt finished. The money arrived 3 weeks later. Not from him. From the court collections office. A plain envelope, a simple check, the full amount. I stared at it for a long moment before depositing it, not because I needed the money, but because it represented something I'd been denied for years. Acknowledgement. I used part of it to replace what he'd taken. A new bookshelf, a new lamp, different styles, different energy. The apartment slowly became mine. The air felt lighter, quieter, like the walls had exhaled after holding tension for too long. One evening, I was sitting on the couch reading when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I hope you're happy, the message read. You ruined my life over a few $100s. You're pathetic and always will be. I didn't reply. I thought about the soda dripping down my face, the laughter, the bills, the lies, and I realized none of it could reach me anymore. I blocked the number. The apartment was silent, and for the first time in a long time, it felt like peace.